Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive with us. Today we're going all the way down into the world of semiconductors,
Ooh, fun.
specifically Intel and their current situation and a potential joint venture they have on the table.
Very interesting.
Yeah, these chips we're talking about, they're the brains behind everything in tech these days, from our smartphones to AI and everything in between.
Absolutely. And, Intel, once a dominant force, has been having some struggles recently.
That's right, their stock has been kind of all over the place.
Yeah, a real roller coaster.
Their foundry business, which we'll get into in a second, is really struggling. And they seem to have kind of missed the boat on the AI boom.
It seems that way.
But there's this glimmer of hope, this possibility of some of the biggest names in tech all teaming up to help Intel get back on track.
Yeah, that's what we're here to talk about today.
So before we get into the specifics, though, I'll just take a quick moment to thank today's sponsor, Stonefly. They're experts in providing high-performance data storage and management solutions. And when you think about the massive amounts of data involved in designing and manufacturing these chips,
Yeah, it's mind-boggling.
it's crazy, right? You can see why a company like Stonefly is so crucial. They offer a range of products and services that ensure businesses of all sizes can store and manage their data securely and efficiently.
Really essential stuff.
So be sure to check out Stonefly and all they have to offer. All right, back to Intel. So you mentioned foundry business, but I think before we go any further, a lot of people listening might not even know what a foundry is.
Right. Good point.
So what is a foundry and why is it so important in this whole semiconductor industry?
Well, a foundry is basically a specialized factory that makes chips designed by other companies.
Okay.
So think of it like you're a fashion designer.
Go.
You've got the designs, but you need someone to actually make the clothes.
Right.
So you go to a tailor,
Okay, got it.
and they create the garment based on your design. But in this case, we're not talking about clothes. We're talking about, incredibly complex microchips.
So Intel's not just designing the chips, they're also trying to be the tailor making them for other companies.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so that's where they're struggling right now.
Yeah, their foundry business hasn't been doing so hot, and they've really fallen behind in terms of technology.
And that's where this joint venture comes into play.
Right, that's the potential solution to these problems.
Okay, so who are the players involved in this? We're talking about a joint venture. So who is Intel potentially teaming up with?
Well, we're talking about some huge names in the industry. TSMC, Nvidia, AMD, Broadcom.
Wow, those are some big names.
Yeah, and TSMC especially.
And they're all like competitors, right?
Well, yeah, in a sense.
So Intel's like teaming up with their rivals.
You could say that.
That's kind of wild.
It is a bit unusual.
So what would this look like? What's the structure of this venture?
Well, the report suggests that TSMC would kind of be the operational leader. They would actually run Intel's foundry operations. However, they wouldn't fully own it. Their ownership would be limited.
Limited to what? Like how much?
Probably less than half.
Less than half.
Yeah, so Intel still retains a majority stake.
Okay, so Intel gets access to TSMC's expertise, which we've been talking about.
Right.
And TSMC gets a bigger foothold in the U.S. market.
Exactly. It's strategic for both sides.
But wouldn't it be kind of like inviting your competition to run your kitchen?
Well,
You know what I mean?
it's a valid concern, but, there could be huge benefits for both sides.
So what are the potential benefits, like for Intel especially? What do they get out of this deal?
Well, for Intel, it's almost like a lifeline,
Really?
Yeah, they get access to TSMC's cutting-edge manufacturing technology, and they could potentially finally get their factories running at full capacity,
At full capacity.
reducing competitive chips.
Okay.
Analyst Chris Queso from Wolf Research, he said something interesting. He said that this venture is basically the only way for Intel to avoid becoming obsolete.
Wow. That's a pretty serious statement.
It is.
I mean, obsolete. That's...
He didn't mince words.
So this is really high stakes.
Definitely high stakes.
But it sounds like it would be less risky than them trying to catch up to TSMC all on their own.
Oh, absolutely. Going it alone would be a massive undertaking.
Huge.
Requiring huge investments and who knows how much time.
Yeah.
This joint venture, it offers a much faster and more efficient way forward.
Okay, so we see how Intel benefits. But why would TSMC want to do this? Why would they want to team up with a company that's struggling?
Well, it's strategic for them, too.
Right.
Partnering with Intel, which is a U.S. company, gives them a stronger presence in the U.S. market.
Okay.
And it aligns with the government's push, to boost domestic chip production.
Right.
It's a win-win for both sides.
So TSMC gets a foothold in the U.S. market. Intel gets a lifeline
Exactly.
Sounds pretty good on paper, but
Yeah.
are there any potential roadblocks to this? It seems almost too good to be true.
Well, nothing's ever that simple.
Right.
One major hurdle could be the government.
The government.
Yeah, you've got a foreign company, TSMC, potentially having a big role in U.S. chip manufacturing.
Okay.
There are definitely going to be concerns about national security and technological dependence.
Right. That
Yeah.
makes sense. You can't ignore the geopolitical factors in all of this.
Absolutely.
So even if they overcome the political hurdles,
Uh,
what about the technical side of things? Merging two completely different companies' technologies and processes, it can't be easy.
that's a great point. You're hitting on a crucial point here. Intel and TSMC, they use different manufacturing processes with variations in transistor technology and node sizes.
And that's a big deal.
It's a huge deal. Integrating these different approaches could be a major technical challenge.
Okay, so even if they get past the politics, they still have to figure out how to make the technology work together.
A big if.
Yeah, what a complex situation.
It is fascinating, though.
It is. It is. And we'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsor to delve deeper into all of this. Stay tuned.
And in the meantime, if you're looking for a reliable partner to help manage your business's data, be sure to check out Stonefly's website. Their solutions are designed to meet the complex needs of today's businesses, ensuring your data is secure, accessible, and always ready to support your operations.
All right, we're back and ready to dig deeper into this whole Intel TSMC saga.
Let's do it.
All right, we're back and ready to dig deeper into this whole Intel TSMC saga. Before the break, we were talking about the joint venture being the most likely scenario. Let's talk about the political side of things. It seems like there's a lot of government interest in bolstering domestic chip production.
Yeah, absolutely. The U.S. government is very aware of how important semiconductors are, and they really want to reduce reliance on foreign manufacturers.
Right.
So this partnership could be a way to address those concerns.
Okay, so that makes sense. But we also mentioned that President Trump has been kind of skeptical of the CHIPS Act, which it was designed to provide funding for U.S. chip makers.
Yeah.
So how does that factor into all of this?
Well, it definitely adds another layer of complexity. The CHIPS Act was supposed to incentivize domestic chip production.
Right.
But Trump has expressed concerns about, government overreach and the need for fiscal responsibility.
Okay.
His opposition creates a lot of uncertainty for Intel and the whole industry, really.
So on the one hand, the government wants to support domestic chip makers, but on the other hand, they're hesitant about funding the very program that's designed to do that.
Right.
It's a bit of a mixed message.
It is a bit of a mixed message, but remember, Intel is in a unique position.
Okay.
They're one of the few companies that both designs and manufactures chips in the U.S.
Oh, that's right.
So that makes them strategically important, even if the administration has reservations about specific funding programs.
So even without the CHIPS Act, the government likely still wants to see Intel succeed.
Yeah, I think that's a safe bet.
Okay.
They wouldn't want to see a key player in U.S. tech, dominance falter, especially with all this global competition in the industry.
Okay, that makes sense. But what about us? What about the consumers? How could this potential joint venture affect, our everyday lives?
Well, think about it. Semiconductors are at the heart of everything we use.
Right.
Our smartphones, laptops, cars, even home appliances, they all rely on these tiny chips.
Yeah.
So if this joint venture leads to Intel producing more advanced and cost-effective chips, it could mean faster, more powerful devices for everyone.
So we could actually see the benefits like trickle down in the form of better tech, maybe even lower prices.
Potentially, yeah.
That's exciting to think about.
And it goes beyond just consumer devices.
Okay.
A revitalized Intel could really have a ripple effect on innovation in fields like AI, healthcare, renewable energy.
Wow.
We're talking about advancements that could impact pretty much every aspect of our lives.
That's a lot.
It is a lot.
But before we get lost in all this, technological optimism, let's take a step back and acknowledge the challenges.
Right.
We've talked about the political and technical hurdles. But what about the companies themselves?
Yeah.
Intel and TSMC, they've been rivals for years.
Yeah.
Can they really put aside their differences and work together effectively?
That's the big question. It's one thing to sign a deal on paper,
Right.
but actually integrating two very different corporate cultures and ways of working is a completely different challenge.
It's like trying to mix oil and water.
Yeah.
You can shake them up together, but they'll eventually separate.
Exactly.
So how do they avoid that kind of clash?
Well, they'll need to establish clear communication channels, shared goals,
Okay.
and a genuine willingness to learn from each other.
So a lot of trust is needed.
A lot of trust.
And speaking of trust, let's give a shout out to today's sponsor, Stonefly.
Yes.
When you're dealing with complex partnerships like this, one, data security and reliability are absolutely paramount.
Couldn't agree more.
Stonefly's solutions are designed to give businesses peace of mind, knowing their data is protected and accessible whenever they need it.
And they offer a range of products and services tailored to different business needs.
Right.
So whether you're a large enterprise like Intel or a growing startup, Stonefly can help you manage your data effectively.
Okay, so we've talked about the political landscape, the potential impact on consumers, the challenges of merging two corporate cultures. But are there any other potential downsides to this venture? We focused a lot on the positives, but it's important to look at the risks as well.
Yeah, of course. One concern is that Intel could become overly reliant on TSMC.
Okay, how so?
Well, what if TSMC decides to change the terms of the partnership down the line or prioritize their own interests over Intel's?
So this lifeline could actually turn into a dependency
It's a possibility.
that limits Intel's options in the future.
It could.
Okay.
Intel would need to be very careful to maintain their own technological capabilities and not become too reliant on their partner.
So it's all about striking that balance
Right.
between collaboration and maintaining their own edge.
They-
But let's zoom out for a second. We've talked a lot about Intel, but what could this joint venture mean for the broader tech landscape?
That's a great question. Well, if it's successful and Intel regains its position as a leading chipmaker, it could really shake things up.
Yeah.
Imagine a revitalized Intel competing head-to-head with TSMC and other giants in the industry.
It's kind of exciting to think about.
It is.
More competition usually leads to more innovation, right?
That's the idea. It could push everyone to develop better, faster, and more affordable chips.
Okay.
We could see a whole new wave of technological advancements across all sorts of industries.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here,
We have.
but I'm still curious about those technical challenges we mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
What specifically makes it so difficult to integrate Intel's and TSMC's manufacturing processes?
Well, it's all in the details.
Mm-hmm.
For example, TSMC is known for their expertise in FinFET transistor technology,
Yeah.
while Intel has been focusing on their own 3D transistor architecture. Combining these different approaches at a manufacturing level requires a deep understanding of both technologies and a lot of careful planning.
So it's not just about, slapping two factories together.
It's much more complicated than that.
It's about finding a way to make these really complex processes work together.
Exactly. And it's not just about transistors either.
Okay.
The node size, which refers to the size of the transistors and other components on the chip,
Right.
that also varies between Intel and TSMC.
And smaller is better.
Generally, yes, smaller nodes mean more transistors packed into the same space,
Okay.
leading to more powerful and efficient chips.
So if they have different node sizes, that adds another layer of complexity.
Absolutely. It's like trying to fit puzzle pieces from different sets together.
You might be able to force them.
You might be able to force them, but it won't be a perfect fit.
Right.
It'll be interesting to see how they handle that.
This all sounds incredibly challenging.
It-
But before we dive into the technical weeds any further, let's take a moment to thank Stonefly for their continued support of this deep dive.
Yes. Thank you, Stonefly.
Their dedication to providing secure and reliable data storage solutions is truly impressive.
They offer a wide range of products and services from cloud-based storage to on-premises solutions,
Right.
so businesses of all sizes can find the perfect fit for their needs.
Okay, with that said, let's jump back into the heart of this Intel TSMC story. We've talked a lot about the potential benefits and the challenges of this Intel TSMC partnership, but I think it's time we ask the big question: what does this all mean for the future of computing?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? If this joint venture actually works and Intel becomes a major player in the foundry business, again, the ripples could be felt throughout the entire tech world.
Yeah, it's kind of mind-blowing to think about. Imagine a world where Intel is back in the game, pushing the boundaries of chip technology alongside TSMC. What kind of advancements could we see?
Well, for starters, think about the devices we use every day.
Smartphone.
Smartphones, laptops, tablets, they could become even more powerful and efficient.
Okay.
Imagine a smartphone that's as powerful as a supercomputer today.
Wow. That's a pretty wild thought. A supercomputer in my pocket, sign me up.
All right.
But it goes
Wait.
beyond just consumer devices, right?
Absolutely. This partnership could have a huge impact on fields like AI and machine learning.
Oh, yeah.
With more powerful and efficient chips, we could see big breakthroughs in areas like natural language processing, image recognition, self-driving cars.
Oh. So we're talking about potentially accelerating the development of technologies that could revolutionize entire industries.
Yeah, It's a lot to think about.
It is a lot to think about.
And it's not just about raw processing power. This partnership could also lead to advancements in chip design and architecture,
Okay.
which could open up entirely new possibilities for computing.
So the potential upside is huge.
It's massive.
But let's be realistic for a second.
Okay.
Even if this joint venture is successful, it's not like Intel is suddenly guaranteed to dominate the market again, right?
That's true. The semiconductor industry is incredibly competitive.
Yeah.
There are other companies out there making huge strides.
Like who?
Samsung, for example, they're a major force in chip manufacturing, and they're not going to just let Intel take the lead without a fight.
So it's not going to be easy for Intel, even with TSMC's help.
It's going to be a tough battle.
But hey, maybe that's a good thing. More competition usually means better products for consumers, right?
Exactly. A healthy amount of competition drives innovation and keeps everyone on their toes.
Right.
And that's good for everyone in the end.
It is good for everyone in the end. And speaking of good things, let's not forget about the unsung heroes behind the scenes, the companies that provide the infrastructure to make all of this possible.
Right, the backbone of the industry.
Stonefly, our sponsor for this episode, is a great example.
Absolutely.
Their data storage and management solutions are essential for companies in data-intensive industries, like, semiconductor manufacturing.
They really are. They provide the foundation for secure, reliable, and efficient data operations, which are crucial in today's tech world.
So whether you're a global chip-making giant or a small startup developing the next big thing, Stonefly has the tools and expertise to support your data needs. Be sure to check out their website to learn more.
You won't regret it.
Now, before we wrap up this deep dive, any final thoughts on what the future holds for Intel and the semiconductor industry as a whole?
Well, I think the future of computing is constantly evolving, and partnerships like this one between Intel and TSMC are a sign of the times. It's not enough to go it alone anymore. Collaboration and innovation are going to be key in shaping the tech landscape moving forward.
Well said. It's an exciting time to be following the world of technology, and we can't wait to see what the future holds. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the Intel-TSMC partnership and its potential impact on the future of computing. Until next time, keep those curiosity gears turning.